So DeeAnn and I decided that we wanted to do this together.
We do a lot of things together, so we thought, why not this?
Why not this, right? And then the Christmas talk and the Christmas idea always is percolating, right? And we get to come back and visit it every year. And this is one of the most amazing things about why I found Unity and why I so resonated with it. Because the basis of Unity, when it started by Charles and Myrtle Fillmore back in the 1880s, was a metaphysical interpretation of Scripture. The understanding that the stories written in the Gospels aren't historical fact, but were written from a spiritual perspective, and they have relevance and power in our lives today, because the story is actually happening in our hearts and minds. That the story of the birth of Christ, of Mary, of Joseph, of the shepherds, of the angels, is all our story. Just like dream interpretation, as if you look at yourself as every character in the story, it shows you and tells you something about yourself in your life. So this one is amazing to me, and I love specifically, I love Luke, because as Luke is written from a perspective of the common man. Luke is what we call in theology school the hippie Jesus, right? Because he writes Jesus from a perspective of that we're all equal and that there's power in love, there's power in the being poor, that all things are equal in that understanding. And so, of course, in Luke's narrative, Jesus isn't born in a house, he's born in a stable, in a manger, surrounded by animals with the lowliest of people. So that perspective alone allows us to step into, where am I poor? Where am I poor in spirit? Where am I experiencing this power differential in my life and in the world? And then the second, only in Matthew and in Luke do we hear this story about Mary and the story of Jesus' conception and Mary carrying it. But as I was listening to Errol read them, and DeeAnn and I were talking about it earlier, I was again reminded that we're lighting the candle for joy today, right? Joy. In that moment, Mary must have been experiencing anything but joy, right? As the story goes on the donkey. So this is a 90-mile trip, 9 months pregnant on a donkey. Just saying, that doesn't sound fun, right? From Nazareth to Bethlehem. It's like, what crazy man thought this idea up, right? So, but part of us that is like, it goes on nuts and crazy ideas, does things like this. But the journey is symbolic, right? Of all the journeys, the struggles we go through in our life. And there's a parallel for me between Eve and Mary in those two scriptures. Because in the story of Adam and Eve from the second Genesis, we get this story that because they ate from this fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, the tree of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, okay? All of a sudden they understand duality and understand pain. And it's written in the scripture that for the first time, women experience pain in childbirth. Well, here's Mary taking this journey in this scary place and experiencing the pain of childbirth in a stable, but it also gives birth to the biggest joy and the greatest light of the planet. And I know, although I've never given birth, but I've witnessed one in person and watched the joy, the pain, the terror, the frightening, the sheer magic of the moment. And all of us here are here because of that moment that someone went through and that some lucky women get to experience firsthand. The incredible pain, incredible joy, all mixed together. Whenever we're creating something, birthing something new in the world, we may experience it as painful. We may experience it as a struggle of being in the manger with no place for us. This is a new territory, somewhere we've never been before. And yet, out of that awkwardness and out of that pain, out of that sheer terror, comes the thing we've all been waiting for, our higher self and the light.
In the second part that Errol read, which was about the angels speaking to the shepherds, and it says literally they were terrified. They were terrified to hear that divine voice, to hear that guidance system working like a clarion bell, saying go, do, be. And that is operating as our life. And how many of us are just as terrified when we hear that call that says change is coming. Something new is trying to emerge from our life. I happen to love Mary. Mary for me is what Christmas is all about. That idea that we are incubating something within us and that it is divine. I think about Mary listening to the angel Gabriel saying, whoa, like I am pregnant with that which is everything I am seeking. Oh, and we're all Mary. We are all Mary, and we are that which is birthing within us, and we are the angel. We are the thing that is guiding us always. And so as we're standing in this Advent, like we're on this beautiful precipice. It's the last day of Advent, and we're moving into what is the revelation of the Christ Buddha-ness that you are. We look at what is arising from this Advent, and it's all there to support us. In the midst of your terror, in the midst of your fear, in the midst of your doubts and your worries, and I am not enough, because I know that's what comes up for me. I am so not enough. What if it fails? What if it's a disaster? What if I make a mistake? Which we know in our teaching means that all we did was miss the mark. All we were was somehow not totally in alignment with the truth of who and what we are. So we come back to the Advent. We come back to faith. Mary had faith. I mean, all of a sudden you're hearing that you need to show up and be and do something, and you're going to be pregnant with it for 9 months, and your entire community could ostracize you in the process. And she says, yes, I am a willing handmaiden. I am willing to birth this. That's that faith piece. And then the peace. Joseph and Mary both had to stand in the peace of the decision of it. To not allow the chaos around them to take over. To not allow the activity of the doubts and the fears and the worries to overwhelm them. And then that begins to allow us to stand in love, to stand as love, to be the love. And ultimately, what is arising from that space, can you feel how it all builds and supports you? And then what we have is joy out of the terror, out of the pain, is the joy of the birthing of something new. Within us, as us, that Christness that is our birthright. It's not something you're getting from out there. It's not like Santa Claus is going to come and give you the gift.
Although we will sing that later.
We will. But that's not what we believe. It is the thing that you already are. So the invitation is, will you own it? Will you be it? Will you truly stand in it this day, and the next day, and the next day? Because it's a practice that we have to continually say yes to.
And this one here, with me, helps me in the office, helps me on the phone, helps me in so many ways, because as we go through this, every step along the journey, right, you're trying to birth something greater than yourself, or to step into territory that you've never managed before. Takes a team. And so that's why we come together as community, and why this story is told year after year after year, because it is constantly happening in our lives. And community is the way that we receive the support necessary to be bigger than we know ourselves to be. Let me be really clear. When we speak of the Christ here, and we say the Christ, and we don't mean Jesus. Okay? I don't necessarily mean Jesus. Jesus was the Christ. But so are you. Each and every one of you has within you everything that Jesus has, because you are all magnificent expressions of the one power, the presence, the divine. You are all the beloved. And when we go through this journey and remember our wholeness, when we let go of all of the personality and the trappings and the wounds and the problems of our lives, we can move in and step in terrified to all that we're really meant to be. So, what is it that in you is calling for greater expression? What is it in you that needs to be birthed in the world? Because my experience is that we are all living smaller than we could be.
Amen.
That we are all living as, I'm just human, I'm just little me. What difference can I make in the world? Well, tons. Tons. One step at a time. Even when it's painful and hard to have certain conversations and to push each other and to be there for each other and to stand and have your back and say, I know that you have something greater within you. I do. And I love you through your pain of this.
I'm birthing and it's really not pretty.
The first day when I was still minister back in Fremont, and we lost, JD and I lost the first kid that we had been matched with, a child we were about to adopt. This is the woman I called at that moment, and she reminded me that good given in the world never is lost. It comes back to you through other channels. And I know this, I teach it, but I needed to hear it, because in the moment I couldn't see it. She reminded me of that truth. And 2 years later, she was next to us when we welcomed Roman into our life, and Tobias into our life, and then Jason. And this never-ending stream, this fountain of good that has blessed me and each and every one of you. So, one moment at a time, we can remember that we're whole, that we're the Christ, and that even in the midst of our pain, there's joy. Even in the midst of our terror, there's joy.
What if we lived from that? What if we actually lived from that? Every choice that you made, every step that you took was anchored in that awareness of the angels that are you singing that I bring you tidings of great joy. Even in the midst of your terror, what if you knew that truly joy was what was operating? Joy was what was seeking to be revealed as your life more fully and more powerfully. What is yours to birth, to own, to be, that no one else can be or do? I need you. The world needs you to show up as you. Uniquely, magnificently. No one else can do it. No one else can do the thing that you are called to do, that you are called to be. I bring you tidings of such joy. Let's take that into our time of meditation.
I invite you to get comfortable.